Welcome to the Sleep Story Haven, your peaceful sanctuary where the whispers of ancient forests meet the gentle rhythm of moonlit shores. Here, time slows to the rhythm of your breathing. Worries dissolve like mist, and your mind finds the peace it's been seeking. Each story is crafted to guide you through enchanted landscapes and tranquil moments, designed to quiet your thoughts and prepare your spirit for deep, restorative sleep. So find your most comfortable position, close your eyes, and let tonight's gentle tale carry you to the peaceful dreams that await. Welcome to your Sleep Story Haven. Take a deep breath and let our story begin. The Jade, Serpent's Dream, a sleep story of ancient Mesoamerica. Chapter 1, The Seeker of Rest. Elena had been searching for peace for longer than she could remember. In her waking life, the modern world pressed against her consciousness like waves against weathered stone, each day bringing new tensions that settled deep into her bones. Tonight, as twilight painted the sky in shades of amber and rose, she found herself drawn to an ancient path that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light. The path began at the edge of a quiet forest, where cedar and copal trees released their sacred fragrances into the cooling air. Elena breathed deeply, feeling something within her chest begin to soften as the aromatic smoke seemed to carry her worries away on invisible wings. Her footsteps fell naturally into a rhythm that matched the gentle rustling of leaves overhead, creating a soft percussion that invited her deeper into tranquility. As she walked, Elena noticed how the very air around her seemed to thicken with ancient wisdom. The path beneath her feet was worn smooth by countless pilgrims who had walked this way before, each seeking their own form of restoration. The stones seemed to pulse with a warm, jade green light that grew more pronounced as darkness settled over the land. This ethereal glow did not hurt her eyes. Instead, it soothed them, inviting her to see with different senses, to perceive with the heart rather than the mind. The forest around her was alive with gentle sounds that seemed to weave together into a natural symphony. Night birds called to one another with voices like silver bells, their songs echoing off the canopy in cascading harmonies. Somewhere in the distance, water trickled over smooth stones, creating a constant whisper that spoke of eternal flow and peaceful persistence. The combination of these sounds created a cocoon of serenity that wrapped around Elena like a cherished blanket. As she continued along the path, Elena began to notice other travelers. They moved with the same unhurried pace, each wrapped in their own bubble of contemplative silence. Some carried small bundles of herbs that released sweet smoke as they walked. Others held jade amulets that caught and reflected the mysterious green light, creating dancing patterns on the path ahead. None spoke, but their presence was comforting, a reminder that the search for peace was a shared human journey. The path began to descend gently, following the natural contours of the land. With each step downward, Elena felt herself sinking deeper into a state of relaxation she had almost forgotten was possible. Her breathing slowed and deepened, matching the rhythm of her footsteps. The tension in her shoulders began to melt away like morning mist touched by the first rays of sun. Her mind, usually busy with endless thoughts and concerns, grew quiet and spacious. Ancient petroglyphs began to appear on the rocks beside the path, carved symbols that seemed to tell stories of creation and renewal. Elena paused occasionally to trace these markings with her fingertips, feeling their worn surfaces and sensing the devotion of those who had carved them long ago. Each symbol seemed to pulse with its own gentle energy, contributing to the growing sense of sacred presence that surrounded her. The jade light grew stronger as Elena descended, and she began to make out the source of its radiance. Ahead, the path opened into a vast valley nestled between protective mountains. In the center of this valley stood a magnificent temple complex, its stone surfaces carved with intricate designs that seemed to move and flow in the shifting light. The entire structure glowed with the same jade radiance that had been guiding her path. But here the light was warm and welcoming, like a beacon calling her home. As Elena approached the temple complex, she could see that it was built in harmony with the natural landscape. Terraced gardens cascaded down the mountainsides, filled with plants she recognized as sacred to the ancient peoples of this land. Cacao trees spread their broad leaves like protective umbrellas, their pods gleaming in the mystical light. Amaranth and chia plants rustled softly in the gentle breeze, their seeds promising nourishment and strength. Flowers bloomed in impossible profusion, their fragrances mingling to create an intoxicating perfume that seemed to carry her deeper into peace with each breath. The temple itself rose in stepped pyramids that seemed to echo the shape of the surrounding mountains. Each level was adorned with carvings that told the stories of the gods and goddesses who had shaped this sacred landscape. Elena could make out the flowing forms of feathered serpents, their scales catching the light like individual jewels. Jaguars prowled along the stone borders, their eyes made of polished obsidian that reflected the stars beginning to appear overhead. Birds with magnificent plumage spread their wings across entire wall sections, their feathers carved with such detail that they seemed ready to take flight. As Elena drew closer to the temple complex, she became aware of a subtle vibration in the air, a deep humming that seemed to emanate from the very stones. This was not an unpleasant sound, but rather a harmonious resonance that made her feel as though she were being tuned like a musical instrument. Her body began to align with this frequency, and she felt herself settling into an even deeper state of relaxation. The path led her to a wide plaza, paved with smooth jade stones that radiated gentle warmth beneath her feet. In the center of the plaza stood a fountain carved in the shape of a great feathered serpent, its mouth open to release a steady stream of crystal clear water. The sound of this fountain was like liquid music, each drop creating perfect ripples that caught and scattered the jade light in endless, hypnotic patterns. Elena approached the fountain and cupped the water in her hands, bringing it to her lips. The liquid was cool and sweet, with a taste that reminded her of mountain springs and ancient rains. As she drank, she felt something fundamental shift within her being. The water seemed to carry with it the essence of all the sacred places it had touched, all the ceremonies it had witnessed, all the prayers it had helped to carry skyward. Around the plaza, Elena noticed small groups of people engaged in quiet activities. Some sat in meditation before small shrines dedicated to various deities. Others tended to the garden terraces, their movements slow and deliberate, each gesture a form of prayer. Children played gentle games with carved jade balls, their laughter like the sound of wind chimes in a summer breeze. Everyone moved with the same unhurried grace, as though they had found the secret of living in harmony with time itself. As Elena stood by the fountain, allowing the peaceful energy of the place to wash over her, she became aware of a presence approaching. Turning, she saw an elderly woman dressed in robes woven from cotton, so fine it seemed to capture and hold the starlight. The woman's face was kind and deeply lined, speaking of many years spent in contemplation and service. Her eyes held the depth of one who had gazed into the heart of mystery and found there not answers, but a peace that transcended the need for questions. "Welcome, seeker," the woman said, her voice carrying the musical quality of the fountain's flow. "You have traveled far to reach this place of rest. I am Itzel, keeper of the jade flame that burns at the heart of all peaceful dreams. You have come seeking restoration, and here you shall find it in the ancient way of our people, through the stories that heal and the dreams that renew." Elena felt tears of relief gathering in her eyes. She had not realized until this moment how desperately she had needed to hear those words, to know that her search had not been in vain. "I am Elena," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I have been searching for peace for so long, I had almost forgotten what it felt like to hope for it." Itzel smiled, and in that smile Elena saw reflected all the compassion of the earth itself. Peace is not something we find, child. It is something we remember. It lives within us always, waiting to be uncovered like jade hidden in ordinary stone. Tonight, you will journey through the sacred stories of our ancestors, and in their wisdom, you will rediscover the peace that has always been your birthright. The elderly woman gestured toward the temple complex, where Elena could now see soft lights glowing in various chambers and courtyards. Each level of the temple holds a different story, a different gift. You will ascend slowly, allowing each tale to work its healing magic upon your spirit. By the time you reach the highest chamber, you will have remembered not just peace, but the profound rest that connects all living things. Elena nodded, feeling a deep certainty that she had finally found what she had been seeking. The tension that had been her constant companion for so long continued to ebb away, replaced by a growing sense of homecoming. She was ready to begin this sacred journey, to allow the ancient wisdom to work its gentle magic upon her weary soul. As Itzel led her toward the first level of the temple, Elena took one last look at the plaza with its jade fountain and gentle inhabitants. This place felt more real to her than anywhere she had ever been, more true than the harsh world she had left behind. Here, in this sanctuary of ancient peace, she would learn the deepest secrets of rest and restoration. The jade light pulsed gently around them as they walked, and Elena felt herself being embraced by something vast and nurturing. The first chapter of her healing journey was beginning, and she surrendered to it completely, trusting in the wisdom of ages to guide her toward the peace she had sought for so long. Chapter 2: The Courtyard of First Dreams. Itzel led Elena through an archway carved with intricate depictions of corn plants and flowering vines. Their stone leaves, so detailed they seemed to tremble in the jade light. The archway opened into a peaceful courtyard where the air was thick with the fragrance of night-blooming jasmine and copal incense. Here, the first sacred story would be shared, beginning Elena's journey into the deepest forms of rest. The courtyard was circular, its floor made of polished obsidian that reflected the stars like a dark mirror. Around the perimeter, low stone benches were carved directly from the bedrock, their surfaces worn smooth by countless seekers who had rested there before. In the center of the space stood a raised platform where a small fire burned in a jade brazier, its flames dancing with colors Elena had never seen before, deep purples that shifted to gold, then to silver, then to the softest green. "Sit, child," Itzel said, gesturing to one of the benches. "Rest your body so that your spirit may travel freely through the tale I am about to share." Elena settled onto the smooth stone, surprised to find it warm against her back. as though it held the accumulated comfort of all who had leaned against it, seeking solace. The warmth spread through her body, relaxing muscles she hadn't even realized were tense. Her breathing deepened naturally, and she felt herself sinking into a state of receptive calm. Itzel took her place beside the jade fire, her robes seeming to merge with the dancing flames. When she spoke, her voice carried the rhythm of ancient ceremonial chants, each word falling like a gentle raindrop into the pool of Elena's consciousness. In the time before time, Itzel began, when the world was nothing but endless darkness and infinite possibility. There lived the great spirits who would shape all that was to come. Among these divine beings were two whose stories would echo through all the dreams of peace that followed. The fire in the brazier seemed to respond to her words, its flames growing taller and more luminous. Elena watched, mesmerized, as shapes began to form in the dancing light, serpentine curves that suggested movement and grace, feathered patterns that spoke of flight and transcendence. First came Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, whose very name means the marriage of earth and sky. He was born from the breath of the wind and the dreams of the earth, emerging into consciousness with wings of brilliant green quetzal feathers and a body that undulated like flowing water. His arrival brought the first gentle breeze to the world, carrying with it the promise of growth and renewal. As Itzel spoke, Elena felt a soft wind stir around the courtyard, though the air had been perfectly still moments before. The breeze carried scents that transported her, the green smell of new growth, the sweet fragrance of flowers opening to the sun, the clean scent of rain-washed stone. Each breath filled her with a deeper sense of connection to the natural world. Quetzalcoatl was the bringer of gifts, Itzel continued, her voice weaving seamlessly with the sound of the wind. But his greatest gift was not corn or fire or the calendar, though these two were precious beyond measure. His greatest gift was the understanding that all things are connected, that the breath of life flows through every creature, every plant, every stone. The elderly woman paused, allowing her words to settle into Elena's consciousness like seeds planted in fertile soil. Elena felt her heart rate slowing, synchronizing with the rhythm of Itzel's speech and the gentle crackling of the sacred fire. The obsidian floor beneath her reflected the flames in infinite tiny mirrors, creating the illusion that she was floating among stars. In those early days, Itzel resumed, Quetzalcoatl would soar above the formless void, his feathered wings creating currents of air that would later become the trade winds and the seasonal rains. As he flew, he sang, not with voice as we understand it, but with the very essence of his being. His song was the first music, the fundamental harmony from which all other melodies would grow. Elena found herself listening not just to Itzel's words, but to something deeper, a subtle melody that seemed to emanate from the stones themselves, from the fire, from the very air around them. It was a song without words, a harmony that spoke directly to the soul. Her breathing aligned with its rhythm, and she felt herself drifting deeper into the peaceful trance that the story was weaving around her. The song of Quetzalcoatl had the power to awaken consciousness in all things, Itzel said. Where his voice touched the void, light began to stir. Not the harsh light of judgment or examination, but the gentle illumination of understanding. This was the jade light you followed to reach this place. The same light that first pierced the darkness at the dawn of creation. The jade glow around them seemed to pulse in response to these words, growing warmer and more enveloping. Elena felt bathed in this ancient radiance, each wave of light carrying away another layer of tension and concern. Her hands, which had been clasped tightly in her lap, relaxed and opened like flowers turning toward the sun. As Quetzalcoatl sang and soared, his movements began to trace patterns in the void. These patterns became the first sacred geometries, the templates upon which all future growth would be based. The spiral shell that would house the snail, the hexagonal cell that would store the bee's honey, the perfect curve of the crescent moon. All of these forms first appeared in the wake of the feathered serpent's flight. Itzel gestured to the carved walls around them, and Elena noticed for the first time the intricate geometric patterns that adorned the stone. Spirals flowed into triangles, which blossomed into star shapes, which dissolved back into flowing curves. Looking at these patterns induced a meditative state, her eyes naturally tracing the endless loops and connections until her mind grew quiet and spacious. But Quetzalcoatl was not meant to create alone, Itzel continued. For creation requires both light and shadow, both the impulse to build and the wisdom to know when to rest. And so the Great Spirit called forth his sacred counterpart, Tezcatlipoca, the smoking mirror, whose domain was the mystery that lies beyond the reach of sight. The fire dimmed slightly, and Elena felt the air grow cooler and more mysterious. This was not frightening, but rather comforting, like pulling a soft blanket up to her chin on a winter night. The shadows that gathered around the courtyard seemed friendly and protective, offering a sense of privacy and safety. Tezcatlipoca emerged from the depths of possibility, his form shifting and changing like smoke given consciousness. Where Quetzalcoatl was constant motion and brilliant display, Tezcatlipoca was the pause between heartbeats, the silence between musical notes. His mirror showed not what was, but what could be, reflecting infinite potential in its obsidian surface. Elena's eyes drifted to the obsidian floor beneath her. seeing in its dark surface a perfect complement to the jade light above. The interplay between light and shadow, reflection and illumination, created a visual rhythm that was deeply soothing to her nervous system. She felt her brain waves slowing, shifting into the patterns associated with deep rest and restoration. The meeting of these two great spirits was like the first dawn, Itzel said, her voice growing softer and more hypnotic. Quetzalcoatl's light touched Tezcatlipoca's mirror, and in that moment of contact, the first possibility of rest was born, for they discovered that creation and reflection, movement and stillness, effort and repose were not opposites, but partners in an eternal dance. The image of this cosmic dance filled Elena's imagination, the brilliant feathered serpent weaving patterns of light and motion, while the mysterious smoking mirror provided the pauses and spaces that gave those patterns meaning. She could feel this same dance playing out in her own body as her breathing created rhythm and the spaces between breaths created rest. Together, they began to dream the world into being, Itzel continued. But this was not the rushed creation of impatience. This was the slow, deliberate dreaming of beings who understood that the most profound creations emerge from the deepest rest. They would dream for eons, allowing each aspect of the world to unfold in its own perfect timing. Elena felt herself being drawn into this cosmic dreaming, her own consciousness expanding to touch something vast and patient. Time seemed to slow and stretch, each moment becoming spacious enough to hold infinite peace. The urgency that usually drove her thoughts dissolved completely, replaced by a trust in the natural unfolding of things. In their dreaming, Quetzalcoatl and Tezcatlipoca discovered the first great secret of rest, Itzel said, her words now barely above a whisper. True peace does not come from the absence of movement, but from the perfect balance of activity and repose, like the breath that flows in and out, like the heart that beats and pauses, like the seasons that cycle through growth and dormancy. The fire in the jade brazier settled into a steady, gentle glow, its flames moving in slow, hypnotic patterns that matched the rhythm of Elena's breathing. She felt completely supported by the stone bench, by the air around her, by the very molecules of space that held her in their invisible embrace. Her body was relaxing so deeply that she began to lose track of where she ended and the peaceful environment began. And so the first gift is given to you, seeker, Itzel said, rising gracefully from her place by the fire. The gift of understanding that rest is not empty waiting, but full presence. That peace is not the absence of change, but harmony with the rhythm of change. Carry this knowing with you as we ascend to the next level of the temple, where deeper mysteries await. Elena opened eyes she hadn't realized she had closed, feeling refreshed and renewed despite having been awake throughout the entire story. The tension that had been her constant companion felt lighter, not completely gone, but transformed into something more manageable. She rose from the bench with movements that felt more fluid than usual, as though the story had taught her body a new way of being. As they prepared to leave the courtyard, Elena took one last look at the jade fire still dancing in its brazier. The flames seemed to whisper a promise that this was only the beginning, that greater gifts of rest and restoration awaited her in the chambers above. She followed Itzel toward the next archway, her steps naturally falling into the unhurried rhythm she had discovered in the first sacred story. The jade light continued to guide them, and Elena felt herself being drawn deeper into the ancient mystery of healing dreams. Each step took her further from the world of tension and worry, and closer to the profound peace that lay at the heart of all existence. Chapter 3: The Chamber of Jade Serpents. The archway leading to the second level was larger than the first, its carved frame depicting serpents intertwined with flowering vines. As Elena and Itzel passed through, the jade light grew more intense, emanating now from the walls themselves, which were embedded with countless small jade stones that created a constellation of gentle green radiance. This chamber was different from the courtyard below, more intimate and cave-like, with a domed ceiling that curved protectively overhead. The walls were covered in murals that seemed to move and breathe in the shifting light, telling stories in pictures that spoke directly to the heart without needing words. Elena found herself drawn to these images, her eyes tracing the flowing narratives of gods and mortals, earth and sky, dream and waking life. In the center of the chamber, a shallow pool reflected the jade light from above, its surface so still it seemed more like polished stone than water. Around the pool's edge, serpents carved from various shades of jade curved and coiled, their bodies forming seats just the right size for contemplation. The sight of these serpent benches, far from being alarming, filled Elena with a deep sense of safety and protection. "Sit upon the jade serpent that calls to you," Itzel instructed, her voice echoing softly in the domed space. Each one holds a different gift of rest and will share its wisdom with the seeker who approaches with an open heart. Elena walked slowly around the pool, feeling drawn to a serpent carved from pale green jade that seemed to glow with its own inner light. As she settled onto its smooth surface, she gasped softly at the sensation. The jade was perfectly warm, as though it had been heated by benevolent sunlight, and it seemed to conform to her body in a way that provided ideal support for every muscle and bone. "You have chosen the serpent of deep dreaming," Itzel said, settling herself onto a serpent of darker jade across the pool. "It will teach you the ancient art of conscious rest, the way of sinking into peace while remaining gently aware of the healing that unfolds." Itzel began to speak, her voice taking on the rhythmic quality of a lullaby, each word carefully spaced to create maximum relaxation in the listener in the time when the world was young and malleable. Quetzalcoatl took on the form of the great jade serpent to explore the newly created earth. He slithered through primeval forests where every tree was perfect, along rivers that sang with crystal voices, across meadows where flowers bloomed in response to his gentle presence. As the story began, Elena felt the jade serpent beneath her growing even warmer, its surface somehow becoming softer and more yielding while retaining its supportive strength. She sank deeper into its embrace, feeling her spine align perfectly. Her breathing deepen naturally, her mind grow quiet and receptive. The jade serpent moved without haste, Itzel continued, for he understood that the journey was as important as the destination. Each movement was deliberate and graceful, each pause an opportunity to fully experience the wonder of existence. His scales caught the light of the young sun and scattered it in patterns that taught the first flowers how to arrange their petals. Elena's breathing synchronized with the imagined movement of the great serpent, slow and sinuous, each inhalation bringing in peace, each exhalation releasing tension. She could almost feel herself moving through that perfect primeval landscape, her consciousness flowing like water over smooth stones, encountering no resistance, no obstacles to peace. As the jade serpent traveled, he discovered that the earth was filled with places of power, natural formations, where the energy of creation had pooled and crystallized into permanent sources of healing, springs that could cure any ailment, groves where time moved differently, caves that amplified the power of dreams and visions. The pool in the center of the chamber began to glow more brightly, its surface now revealing depths that hadn't been visible before. Elena gazed into these depths and saw not water but liquid light, swirling gently in patterns that reminded her of the movement Itzel was describing. Watching these patterns induced a trance-like state, her consciousness becoming fluid and expansive. At each of these sacred places, the jade serpent would coil himself into a perfect spiral and rest, Itzel said, her voice growing even more soothing. Not the rest of exhaustion, but the rest of completion, the deep satisfaction of a being who is exactly where he belongs, doing exactly what he was meant to do. In these moments of perfect rest, his jade scales would absorb the healing energy of the place, storing it for those who would later need such gifts. Elena felt this same process happening within her own body. With each breath, she seemed to be absorbing healing energy from the jade serpent that supported her, from the glowing walls around her, from the very air that filled the chamber. This energy moved through her system slowly and gently, seeking out places of tension and discord, transforming them into harmony and ease. The jade serpent learned that rest was not passive, but actively restorative. Itzel continued, while his body remained still. His consciousness expanded to encompass entire landscapes. He could feel the roots of trees extending deep into the earth, the flight patterns of birds overhead, the slow dance of seasons as they prepared to unfold. This awareness brought him not information, but peace, the peace of being connected to the whole of existence. Elena's awareness began to expand in the same way, her consciousness gradually extending beyond the boundaries of her physical body. She could sense the other chambers of the temple around and above them, feel the gentle presence of other seekers on their own journeys of healing. Rather than overwhelming her, this expanded awareness brought a deep sense of belonging and safety. In his travels, the jade serpent encountered other creatures who were also seeking rest and healing. Itzel said, some had been wounded in the chaotic times before creation was complete. Others were simply weary from the effort of learning to exist in physical form. To each of these beings, the jade serpent offered the gift of his presence, a reminder that they were not alone in their seeking. Tears of gratitude began to flow silently down Elena's cheeks as she recognized herself in this description. For so long, she had felt isolated in her search for peace, believing that her struggles were hers alone to bear. Now, she understood that countless others had walked this path before her, that her yearning for rest was part of a universal human experience. The jade serpent would encircle these fellow seekers with his coils. Itzel continued, creating a boundary of protection and peace within which deep healing could occur. His jade scales would pulse with gentle light, establishing a rhythm that gradually synchronized with the heartbeat and breathing of the one being comforted. In this cocoon of jade light, time would slow, worries would fade, and profound restoration would begin. Elena felt the stone serpent beneath her pulse with that same gentle rhythm, its jade surface warming and cooling in waves that matched her breathing. She imagined herself being encircled by protective coils of healing light, held safely while the deepest layers of tension and fear dissolved away. The sensation was so real and comforting that she sank even deeper into relaxation. As the ages passed, the jade serpent discovered that his greatest joy came not from his own rest, but from witnessing the transformation of those he had helped to heal. Itzel said, her voice now barely above a whisper. He learned that peace shared becomes peace multiplied. That rest given freely returns tenfold to the giver. This became his sacred purpose, to be a conduit for the healing energy of the earth itself. The pool at the center of the chamber began to ripple gently. Though no wind stirred the air, the ripples caught and scattered the jade light in patterns that were hypnotically beautiful, creating ever-changing mandalas of green and gold that seemed to tell their own stories of transformation and renewal. Elena watched these patterns with eyes that were beginning to feel heavy and peaceful. The jade serpent eventually came to rest at the highest peak of the sacred mountain, where he coiled himself into a perfect spiral that became the pattern for all future temples and places of healing. Itzel continued. There he remains to this day, dreaming the dreams that maintain the world's peace, breathing the breath that keeps the cycles of rest and renewal in perfect balance. Elena could feel herself becoming part of this cosmic breathing, her own rhythm aligning with something vast and eternal. Each breath seemed to connect her not just to her own body, but to the breathing of the earth itself, to the slow respiration of mountains and forests, to the tidal breathing of the oceans. And so the second gift is given to you, Seeker, Itzel said, rising gracefully from her jade serpent seat. The gift of understanding that true rest comes through connection to the earth that supports you, to the breath that sustains you, to the great community of seekers who share your journey. You are never alone in your quest for peace. Elena remained on her jade serpent for several more minutes, allowing the gift to integrate fully into her being. She felt fundamentally changed by the experience, as though some essential part of herself that had been scattered had been gathered back together and woven into a more coherent whole. When she finally rose, her movements were fluid and graceful, informed by the serpentine wisdom she had absorbed. The chamber seemed to pulse with benevolent energy as they prepared to leave. The jade serpents around the pool appearing to nod their carved heads in blessing. Elena felt she was leaving friends behind, but also carrying their gifts with her into whatever lay ahead. The pool's surface had returned to perfect stillness, but now she understood that this stillness was not empty, but full, pregnant with infinite possibility for healing and renewal. As they approached the archway leading to the third level, Elena looked back once more at the chamber of jade serpents. The space seemed to whisper a promise that its healing presence would always be available to her, that she could return to this perfect rest whenever she needed its gifts. With this assurance glowing warm in her heart, she followed Itzel toward the next stage of her journey into the deepest mysteries of peace. Chapter 4: The Garden of Eternal Flowers. The third level opened not into another chamber, but into a vast garden that seemed to extend beyond the physical boundaries of the temple. Here, under a sky that shimmered with aurora-like bands of jade and gold, Elena found herself walking along paths that wound between flower beds of impossible beauty and diversity. The air was thick with fragrances that seemed designed specifically to induce the deepest relaxation. Lavender that carried away worry, jasmine that soothed the nervous system, and other scents she couldn't identify, but that spoke directly to her soul. "Welcome to the Garden of Eternal Flowers," Itzel said, her voice blending harmoniously with the gentle sound of wind chimes hidden among the flowering branches. Here, the goddess Tezcatlipoca tends the blooms that never fade, each one a prayer made manifest, each fragrance a balm for the weary spirit. Elena walked in wonder along the winding paths, each turn revealing new marvels. Trees she had never seen before stretched their branches overhead, their leaves creating patterns of light and shadow that shifted hypnotically in the breeze. Some trees bore fruit that glowed with soft inner light, while others were hung with flowers that seemed to be made of crystallized starlight. The very ground beneath her feet was soft and yielding, covered with moss that cushioned each step and released the scent of petrichor with every footfall. They came to a circular clearing where a magnificent ceiba tree stood at the center, its trunk so vast that Elena couldn't see where it curved away into the distance. The tree's branches seemed to reach into multiple dimensions, disappearing into misty realms above, while its roots clearly extended deep into the earth below. Around the base of this cosmic tree, concentric circles of flowers bloomed in perfect harmony, their colors flowing from deep purple at the outer edge through blues and greens to brilliant gold at the tree's base. The great ceiba connects all levels of existence, Itzel explained, settling herself gracefully onto a natural seat formed by the tree's massive roots. Its roots reach into the underworld where dreams are born. Its trunk supports the middle world where we live and breathe. And its branches stretch into the heavens where peace is perfected. Here, under its protection, we can safely explore the deepest levels of rest. Elena found her own place among the roots, a natural hollow that seemed designed perfectly for her body. As she settled into this embrace, she felt the tree's vast life force surrounding her like a protective aura. The sensation was of being held by something infinitely patient and nurturing, a presence that had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations while remaining centered in eternal calm. Long ago, when the world was still learning how to balance joy and sorrow, the goddess Tezcatlipoca walked among the newly created flowers and found that many were wilting before their time. Itzel began, her storytelling voice taking on the quality of wind through leaves. They had been created in perfection, but but they did not know how to maintain their beauty in the face of change and challenge. As the story unfolded, Elena noticed that the flowers around them seemed to respond to Itzel's words, their colors becoming more vivid, their fragrances more pronounced. A gentle wind stirred through the garden, carrying with it the whispered voices of countless blooms, each adding its own note to a symphony of scented sound. Tezcatlipoca was filled with compassion for these struggling flowers. Itzel continued. She understood that beauty without resilience was fragile, that joy without the wisdom of acceptance was temporary. And so, she began to teach the flowers the secret of eternal blooming, not by preventing change, but by learning to rest so deeply that change could not disturb their essential nature. Elena felt this teaching working within her own being as she listened. The various concerns and anxieties that usually occupied her mind seemed to be settling deeper, not disappearing, but finding their proper place in the larger pattern of her existence, like flowers learning to bend with the wind instead of breaking. She was discovering how to maintain her peace even in the presence of life's inevitable fluctuations. The goddess began with the night blooming Sirius, a flower that opened only in darkness and lasted but a single night, Itzel said. She showed this flower how to find perfect fulfillment in its brief moment of blooming, how to pour its entire essence into that one glorious night so completely that it achieved a form of immortality through the depth of its expression. The air around them grew cooler and more mysterious, as though night were falling specifically for this part of the story. Elena could almost see the great white blooms of the Sirius opening in the darkness, their pure radiance, a perfect metaphor for finding beauty and meaning even in life's most challenging moments. She felt her own heart opening in a similar way, embracing both the light and shadow aspects of her experience. Next, she taught the lotus, which grew in muddy water but bloomed with unstained petals. Itzel continued. The lotus learned that purity was not about avoiding difficulty, but about maintaining one's essential nature regardless of circumstances. Its roots drew strength from the mud. Its stem found purpose in reaching toward light, and its flower expressed perfect peace because it accepted every aspect of its environment. Elena could feel this lotus wisdom taking root in her own consciousness. The struggles and disappointments of her life no longer seemed like obstacles to peace, but rather like the rich earth from which deeper understanding could grow. She felt herself relaxing into acceptance of her entire journey, seeing how each difficulty had contributed to her capacity for compassion and wisdom. The goddess spent countless seasons teaching each flower its own path to eternal blooming. Itzel said, her voice growing softer as the aurora-like lights above them pulsed in gentle rhythm. The morning glory learned to greet each dawn with fresh enthusiasm, regardless of what the previous day had brought. The evening primrose discovered how to release the day's concerns with grace, opening to receive the healing darkness of night. As these teachings unfolded, Elena felt her own circadian rhythms beginning to align with the natural cycles being described. Her body seemed to remember an ancient wisdom about when to be active and when to rest, when to reach toward goals, and when to release them in trust. The artificial urgency that had driven her for so long began to dissolve, replaced by a more organic sense of timing. But perhaps the most important lesson came when Quetzalcoatl taught the humble marigold the secret of continuous blooming. Itzal continued. This simple flower learned to rest between each blossom, gathering energy in periods of apparent dormancy, then bursting forth in renewed glory again and again throughout the growing season. Elena understood this pattern intimately now, the rhythm of expansion and contraction, effort and rest, that seemed to govern all healthy growth. She felt her breathing naturally adapting to this rhythm. Each inhale, a gentle reaching toward life. Each exhale, a complete release into peace. The pattern was so natural and effortless that she wondered how she had ever lost track of it. The flowers that learned these lessons became the ancestors of all the blooms you see around you now, Itzal said, gesturing to the magnificent garden that surrounded them. They discovered that true beauty comes not from perfection, but from the courage to remain open, open to change, open to growth, open to the healing power of rest. The flowers around them seemed to glow more brightly in response to these words, their colors becoming so vivid they seemed to exist in more dimensions than Elena's eyes could usually perceive. She found herself seeing not just the visible petals, but the energy patterns that flowed through and around each bloom, the networks of light that connected every flower to every other flower in an intricate web of shared beauty. And so each flower became a teacher in its own right. Itzal continued, her voice now taking on the quality of a gentle breeze. The rose taught the balance between openness and protection, its thorns a reminder that healthy boundaries enhance rather than diminish love. The sunflower demonstrated the wisdom of following one's inner light while remaining rooted in practical earth. Elena felt these lessons settling into her body like seeds planted in fertile soil. Each insight seemed to find its perfect place within her understanding, creating not just intellectual knowledge, but embodied wisdom. Her muscles relaxed further with each teaching, as though the flower's gifts were literally reshaping her nervous system toward greater peace. The hibiscus shared its knowledge of graceful transitions, showing how one could close with dignity when the time came, then open again with fresh enthusiasm when conditions were right, Itzel said. The orchid revealed the beauty of uniqueness, demonstrating that there was no single correct way to express the divine nature that flowed through all living things. As the story continued, Elena became aware that she was no longer simply listening, but was somehow participating in this garden of eternal wisdom. She could feel the presence of each flower type as it was mentioned, as though she were being introduced to old friends. Her consciousness seemed to expand to include their perspectives, their ways of being in the world, their particular gifts of beauty and peace. The night-blooming jasmine whispered the secrets of surrendering to the dark phases of existence, finding in them not emptiness, but the fertile void from which new growth emerges. Itzel continued. The lotus revealed that the deepest purity comes not from avoiding life's messiness, but from moving through it with grace and emerging unstained. The ceiba tree above them rustled its leaves in a sound like gentle applause, and Elena realized that she was witnessing something far more than a story. This was a living transmission of wisdom, each word creating actual changes in her cellular structure, her neural patterns, her very DNA. She was being rewoven at the most fundamental level, transformed into someone capable of sustaining the peace she had been seeking. But the greatest teaching came when all the flowers bloomed together under Quetzalcoatl's guidance. Itzel said, her voice now barely distinguishable from the sound of wind through petals. They discovered that their individual beauty was magnified beyond measure when they participated in the collective flowering. Each one maintained its unique characteristics while contributing to a harmony that was greater than the sum of its parts. Elena felt this collective flowering happening within herself, all the different aspects of her being coming into alignment, creating an internal harmony she had never experienced before. Her analytical mind, her emotional heart, her physical body, her intuitive wisdom, all were finding their proper places in a symphony of integrated wholeness. And so the garden became a living mandala of peace, Itzel concluded, where any seeker could come to remember their own capacity for eternal blooming. For the truth the flowers discovered is the truth that lives within every conscious being, that we are all expressions of the same divine beauty, all capable of the same graceful response to life's seasons. Elena sat in perfect stillness for several minutes after the story ended, feeling the teachings integrate into every cell of her body. The garden around her seemed to pulse with living light, each flower a crystallized prayer, each fragrance a direct transmission of peace. She understood now that she carried this garden within herself, that its gifts were not dependent on external circumstances, but were part of her essential nature. The third gift is given to you, seeker, Itzel said. rising with the fluid grace of a flower turning toward the sun. The gift of understanding that you are yourself, an eternal flower in the cosmic garden, capable of continuous blooming, regardless of the seasons of your life. Trust in your own timing. Honor your own unique way of expressing beauty, and know that your flowering contributes to the joy of the whole. As they prepared to leave the garden, Elena felt she was carrying its essence with her. The fragrances seemed to have become part of her own scent, the colors to have enriched the light that flowed through her energy field. She walked with the unhurried grace of the eternal flowers, each step a prayer, each breath a celebration of the beauty that lived within and around her. The path leading to the fourth level wound upward through a grove of flowering trees, their blossoms creating a canopy of living light overhead. Elena moved through this natural cathedral with a heart so full of gratitude that tears of joy sparkled on her cheeks like morning dew. She was being transformed by each level of the temple, becoming someone she had always been, but had forgotten how to be. A being capable of profound and lasting peace. Chapter 5. The Hall of Harmonious Winds. The fourth level revealed itself as a vast hall with no visible walls, its boundaries lost in gentle mists that swirled with iridescent colors. Here, the air itself seemed alive with music, not the music of instruments, but the fundamental harmonies that arose when different streams of wind found perfect resonance with one another. Elena felt the sound as much as heard it, the vibrations moving through her body in waves that seemed to tune her very cells to frequencies of deep peace. Pillars of crystallized air rose from the misty floor to support a ceiling that appeared to be made of solidified sky. These pillars hummed with different tones, each one corresponding to a different aspect of the breath. The cool inhale of mountain morning, the warm exhale of summer afternoon, the gentle sigh of evening settling into night. Walking among them was like moving through a living organ, each step creating subtle harmonies that added to the hall's eternal song. This is the Hall of Harmonious Winds, Itzel explained, her voice blending seamlessly with the musical atmosphere around them. Here, Tezcatlipoca, the wind god who is an aspect of Quetzalcoatl, learned the deepest secrets of breath and teaches them to all who seek the peace that comes from perfect breathing. Elena found herself naturally adjusting her breathing to match the rhythms she heard around her. Each inhalation seemed to draw in not just air, but pure tranquility. Each exhalation released not just carbon dioxide, but layers of tension she hadn't even known she was carrying. Her breathing became so effortless and natural that she barely noticed it. Yet she felt more oxygenated and alive than she had in years. In the center of the hall stood a circular platform made of what appeared to be compressed wind, solid enough to support weight, yet somehow still moving and flowing. Upon this platform sat a figure that Elena initially took to be a statue. But as they approached, she realized it was Tezcatlipoca himself, the wind god in meditation, his form shifting slightly like heat shimmer, his breathing so subtle it was barely perceptible. Tezcatlipoca has been breathing here since the first wind stirred across the primordial waters, Itzel said, settling herself on a cushion of crystallized cloud near the platform. His breath maintains the circulation of air around the world, ensuring that every living thing receives the gift of life force. But more than this, his breathing creates the fundamental rhythm that underlies all existence. Elena found her own place on a similar cloud cushion, marveling at how it supported her perfectly, while seeming to float in the air around her. As she settled into position, she felt herself naturally falling into sync with the barely perceptible breathing of the meditation wind god. Her breath became so slow and deep that each cycle seemed to last for minutes, yet felt completely natural and effortless. In the early days of creation, Itzel began, her voice taking on the rhythmic quality of wind through canyon walls. There was no movement in the world except for the great breathing of the cosmic serpent, but this was enough, for breath is the bridge between the spiritual and physical realms, the force that animates matter and gives it consciousness. As the story unfolded, Elena felt her awareness expanding with each breath, her consciousness seeming to travel further with each exhalation and return renewed with each inhalation. She was no longer simply breathing air, but participating in the cosmic circulation that connected all living things across space and time. Tezcatlipoca observed this primal breathing and recognized it as the pattern from which all other movements would emerge. Itzel continued, the rhythm of ocean waves, the cycles of seasons, the beating of hearts, the growth and decay of civilizations, all would follow the fundamental pattern established by the cosmic breath. Elena's heartbeat slowed to match the vast rhythm being described, her pulse becoming so steady and peaceful that she felt connected to the heartbeat of the earth itself. Each beat seemed to send waves of relaxation through her entire system, synchronizing every cell with the harmonic frequencies that filled the hall. But Tezcatlipoca knew that breath could be more than just the mechanical movement of air. Itzel said, her own breathing becoming so slow and deep that her words seemed to float on currents of exhaled peace. He discovered that conscious breathing could become a vehicle for transformation, a way to consciously participate in the creative forces of the universe. Elena felt this discovery happening within her own experience. Her breathing was becoming conscious, without becoming forced, aware without losing its natural ease. Each breath seemed to carry information about her body's needs, about her emotional state, about the subtle energies flowing through the hall around her. She was learning to breathe with her whole being, not just her lungs. The wind god spent eons experimenting with different breathing patterns. Itzel continued, each one revealing new secrets about the nature of existence. The breath of the north wind brought clarity and focus. The breath of the south wind carried warmth and compassion. The east wind's breath awakened new possibilities, while the west wind's breath brought the peace of completion. As each direction was mentioned, Elena felt the corresponding qualities awakening within her own breath. She began to understand that breathing was not just about oxygen and carbon dioxide, but about circulating the fundamental life force that connected her to every aspect of creation. Her breath became a prayer, a meditation, a form of communication with the divine intelligence that animated the universe. Tezcatlipoca learned to breathe with the mountains, drawing in their stability and strength. Itzel said, her voice now so harmonized with the hall's resonance that Elena wasn't sure if she was hearing words or directly receiving meaning. He breathed with the oceans, absorbing their depth and fluidity. He breathed with the forests, incorporating their patience and wisdom. Each breath made him more than he had been before. Elena felt this same expansion happening within herself. With each inhalation, she seemed to be drawing in qualities she needed: strength when she felt weak, calm when she felt agitated, clarity when confusion arose. With each exhalation, she released what no longer served her: old patterns of tension, outdated beliefs about her limitations, accumulated stress from years of struggling against the natural flow of life. The greatest discovery came when Tezcatlipoca learned to breathe with time itself. Itzel continued, her words now arriving with the perfect timing of natural rhythm. He found that each moment of existence has its own optimal breathing pattern, and that by aligning his breath with the breath of the present moment, he could experience perfect harmony with whatever was occurring. This teaching landed in Elena's body like a key finding its lock. She felt her breathing naturally adjusting to the specific requirements of this particular moment. Not too fast or too slow, not too deep or too shallow, but perfectly calibrated to support her exact state of being right now. The anxiety about past and future that usually colored her experience dissolved completely as her breath anchored her fully in the eternal present. As Tezcatlipoca's understanding deepened, his breathing became so refined that each exhale was a blessing sent out to all living things, and each inhale was a prayer of gratitude for the gift of existence. Itzel said. He realized that breath was not something he did, but something he participated in, a cosmic conversation between his individual consciousness and the universal life force. Elena felt tears of wonder flowing down her cheeks as she experienced this same realization. Her breathing was no longer something she controlled or directed, but something she participated in with complete trust and surrender. Each breath felt like a gift, both given and received, a perfect exchange between her individual being and the vast intelligence that sustained all life. In this perfect participation, Tezcatlipoca discovered the ultimate secret of the wind, Itzel concluded, her voice now indistinguishable from the sound of gentle breeze. That consciousness and breath are one, that by breathing consciously, we align ourselves with the divine mind that dreams the universe into existence moment by moment. Elena sat in profound stillness, her breathing so natural and effortless that she seemed to be breathing with the entire hall, with the crystalline pillars, with the misty walls, with the solidified sky ceiling above. She had become part of the eternal symphony of breath that maintained the world's existence, her individual rhythm contributing to and supported by the vast harmonic structure of creation. The wind god on his platform seemed to nod slightly, acknowledging her understanding, and Elena felt a transmission of blessing flowing to her on invisible currents of air. She was being initiated into an ancient lineage of conscious breathers, those who had learned to use the gift of breath as a bridge to divine consciousness. The fourth gift is given to you, Seeker, Itzel said, rising with movements that seemed to flow like wind made visible. The gift of conscious breathing, the understanding that your breath is your most intimate connection to the life force that sustains all existence. Through breath, you can access any state of consciousness you need, heal any imbalance, find peace in any circumstance. As they prepared to leave the Hall of Harmonious Winds, Elena felt fundamentally transformed by the experience. Her breathing had become a living meditation, a constant prayer, a continuous celebration of her connection to all life. The chronic, shallow breathing that had reflected her anxiety was replaced by a natural rhythm that supported deep peace and vitality. The mists parted to reveal a stairway carved from compressed starlight, leading upward to the fifth level of the temple. Each step seemed to carry Elena higher, not just physically, but in consciousness, her breath naturally adjusting to the rarefied atmosphere of increasing spiritual awareness. She was beginning to understand that each level of the temple was preparing her for something magnificent, some ultimate revelation that awaited at the journey's end. The wind continued to sing around them as they climbed, carrying with it the promise of even deeper mysteries ahead. Elena's breath had become her constant companion and guide, ready to support her through whatever transformations still awaited in the sacred chambers above. Chapter 6: The Obsidian Mirror Chamber. The fifth level opened into a chamber, unlike any that had come before. A perfectly circular space with walls made entirely of polished obsidian that reflected not just images, but the very essence of those who gazed into them. The reflections showed not only Elena's physical form, but layers of light and shadow that revealed the full spectrum of her being. Here, in this space of sacred seeing, she would encounter the mysteries held by Tezcatlipoca, the smoking mirror, lord of the night and guardian of hidden wisdom. The chamber was lit not by jade radiance, but by a soft, silver light that seemed to emanate from the obsidian itself. This light was not harsh or revealing in an uncomfortable way, but rather gentle and healing, like moonlight filtered through clear water. Elena found that looking into the mirrored walls brought not self-judgment, but self-acceptance, as though the obsidian showed her not what was wrong with her, but what was eternally beautiful and worthy of love. In the center of the chamber stood a circular platform of black jade, upon which rested a single obsidian mirror the size of a small pool. The surface of this mirror was so perfectly smooth it seemed to contain infinite depth. And as Elena gazed into it, she saw not her reflection, but something far more mysterious, patterns of light and shadow that seemed to move independently, telling stories without words. "Welcome to the Chamber of Sacred Seeing," Itzel said, her voice taking on new qualities in the acoustically perfect space, somehow both intimate and vast, personal, yet universal. Here, Tezcatlipoca offers the gift of true vision, the ability to see beyond surface appearances to the deeper truths that bring lasting peace. Elena felt drawn to approach the great mirror, her movements naturally slowing to match the contemplative atmosphere of the chamber. As she drew nearer, the patterns in the obsidian surface began to coalesce into recognizable forms, though these forms seemed to exist in dimensions beyond the purely visual. Tezcatlipoca is often misunderstood, Itzel began, settling herself on a meditation cushion placed precisely to offer the optimal viewing angle of the sacred mirror. He is seen as a god of conflict and challenge, but this is only the most superficial understanding. In truth, he is the Lord of necessary darkness, the one who shows us the parts of ourselves we need to see in order to become whole. Elena found her own cushion and settled into it, surprised to find that it adjusted automatically to support her body in perfect alignment. As she gazed into the mirror, she felt no fear of what she might see there, only a deep curiosity and readiness to embrace whatever revelations awaited her. Long ago, when the gods were still learning how to create a world that could sustain peace, Itzel continued, her voice taking on the hypnotic quality of reflected light. Tezcatlipoca discovered that light alone could not bring true illumination. Without shadow to give it definition, light was merely glare. Without darkness to provide contrast, brightness lost all meaning. As the story unfolded, Elena watched the patterns in the mirror shift and change, showing her scenes from the cosmic drama being described. She saw the interplay of light and shadow not as opposition, but as partnership, each making the other more beautiful and meaningful. And so Tezcatlipoca took upon himself the sacred task of creating the darkness that would make light precious. Itzel said he became the mirror that would show creation its own reflection, not to judge or condemn, but to provide the self-awareness necessary for conscious evolution. Elena felt this principle working within her own perception as she gazed into the obsidian surface. The aspects of herself that she usually preferred to ignore or deny were gently illuminated, but in such a way that she could see their hidden gifts. Her tendency toward anxiety, she now saw, was rooted in deep sensitivity and care for others. Her perfectionism arose from a beautiful desire to offer her best to the world. The obsidian mirror shows not what is wrong, but what is unconscious. Itzel continued, her words seeming to spiral into Elena's awareness like gentle smoke. It reveals the hidden wholeness that exists when we stop dividing ourselves into acceptable and unacceptable parts. When we embrace the full spectrum of our being with compassion. The mirror began to show Elena scenes from her own life, but transformed by this new perspective. Moments of failure or embarrassment were revealed as necessary steps in her learning process. Times of sadness or loss were shown as openings that had allowed new compassion to flow in. Every experience, even the most difficult ones, were revealed as gifts that had contributed to her capacity for wisdom and peace. Tezcatlipoca's greatest teaching is that wholeness does not come from perfection, but from integration, Itzel said, her voice now seeming to come from the mirror itself. When we stop fighting the parts of ourselves we don't like and begin to understand their deeper purpose, we discover a peace that cannot be disturbed by external circumstances. Elena felt this integration happening within her in real time. The internal conflict that had been a constant companion for years was dissolving as she began to see how every aspect of her personality served a purpose in the larger pattern of her being. Her critical inner voice transformed into discernment. Her emotional intensity became passion for beauty and truth. Her restlessness revealed itself as spiritual hunger that was finally being fed. The Lord of the Smoking Mirror taught the early humans that their reflections in water and polished stone were not merely images, but windows into their souls. Itzel continued. He showed them that by gazing into these mirrors with courage and compassion, they could see not just who they were, but who they were becoming. The obsidian mirror now showed Elena not just her present self, but glimpses of her potential futures, versions of herself, in which her current struggles had been transformed into wisdom. Her weaknesses had become strengths. Her wounds had become sources of healing for others. These visions were not fantasies, but genuine possibilities, available to her through the very process she was experiencing now. In the deepest teaching of the smoking mirror, Tezcatlipoca revealed that all seeking arises from forgetting, Itzel said, her words now barely distinguishable from the play of light on the obsidian surface. We seek peace because we have forgotten that we are peace. We search for love because we have forgotten that we are love. We yearn for wholeness because we have forgotten that we have never been broken. This revelation hit Elena like a gentle wave of warm water, washing away the very foundation of her seeking. She saw clearly now that her search for peace had been based on the illusion that peace was something outside herself, something she had to earn or find or create. The mirror showed her the truth, that peace was her natural state, temporarily obscured, but never actually lost. The obsidian mirror reflects the truth that exists before all stories, beyond all interpretations, Itzel continued. In this truth, there is no seeker and nothing to seek, no problem and no solution, only the eternal presence that has been watching through your eyes and breathing through your lungs since the moment you were born. Elena felt her sense of individual identity becoming transparent, revealing the vast consciousness that had always been her true nature. She was not a separate being seeking peace, but peace itself, temporarily dreaming that it was lost. The relief of this recognition was so profound that tears of joy began flowing down her cheeks, each drop sparkling like liquid starlight in the chamber's silver radiance. Tezcatlipoca's mirror shows that what we call problems are simply invitations to remember who we really are, Itzel said, her form beginning to merge with the patterns of light reflected in the obsidian walls. Every challenge is an opportunity to discover a deeper level of peace, every difficulty a doorway to greater compassion. The mirror's surface began to still, the moving patterns settling into perfect calm. In this stillness, Elena saw reflected not her individual face, but the face of consciousness itself, serene, knowing, infinitely compassionate. She understood now that this was the face she had always worn, though she had forgotten how to see it. The fifth gift is given to you, seeker, Itzel said, though Elena was no longer sure if the words came from the woman beside her or from the depths of her own knowing. The gift of true seeing, the understanding that you are not a separate self-seeking piece, but peace itself awakening to its own nature. In this recognition, all seeking ends and true rest begins. Elena sat in perfect stillness before the obsidian mirror, watching as her reflection gradually faded into pure awareness. She felt no need to move or speak or do anything at all. For the first time in her life, she was experiencing the peace of complete non-doing, the rest that comes when all effort to become something other than what you are finally ceases. The chamber around her seemed to pulse with validation of this recognition. The obsidian walls reflected not images now, but pure light, the light of consciousness recognizing itself in all its myriad forms. Elena had crossed a threshold from which there was no return. She had seen through the illusion of separation and glimpsed the eternal unity that connected all apparent things. When she finally rose to continue her journey, Elena moved with the fluid grace of someone who no longer carried the weight of a separate self. The obsidian mirror's gift had lightened her beyond measure, revealing that the burden she had been carrying was nothing more than a case of mistaken identity. As they approached the stairway to the 6th level, she felt she was ascending not as a seeker, but as the very peace she had been seeking, finally awakening to its own infinite nature. Chapter 7: The Crystal Caves of Memory. The 6th level revealed itself as a series of interconnected crystal caves that extended far beyond the physical structure of the temple. Here, the walls were lined with crystals of every conceivable type, amethyst clusters that emanated tranquil purple light, clear quartz formations that amplified the slightest whisper into gentle songs, rose quartz deposits that filled the air with the frequency of unconditional love. Each crystal held within its structure the memories of the earth itself, and walking among them was like moving through the archive of all peaceful moments that had ever existed. The caves were illuminated by the crystal's own inner radiance, creating an environment that felt both ancient and timeless. Water dripped slowly from crystalline stalactites into pools that reflected the multicolored light in patterns that constantly shifted, yet somehow remained perfectly harmonious. The sound of these water drops created a natural rhythm that seemed to resonate in Elena's bones, synchronizing her nervous system with the deep pulse of the earth's heart. "Welcome to the crystal caves of memory," Itzel said, her voice taking on new harmonics as it bounced off the crystal walls and returned enriched with overtones. Here, the earth itself stores the wisdom of every moment of peace that has ever been experienced, preserving these memories in crystalline form so that they can be shared with all who have need of them. Elena felt immediately at home in this environment, as though she were visiting a place she had known in dreams. The crystals seemed to recognize her presence, their light growing brighter as she passed, creating a pathway of illumination that led deeper into the cave system. She could feel the memories stored in each formation, moments of perfect rest, experienced by countless beings across vast spans of time. They came to a circular chamber where the largest crystals grew, some reaching from floor to ceiling in magnificent columns of pure geometric beauty. In the center of this chamber, a natural crystal formation had grown into the shape of a perfect chair, its faceted surfaces catching and refracting light in patterns that induced immediate states of deep relaxation. Elena was drawn to this crystal throne as though by magnetic force. This is the seat of eternal memory, Itzel explained, settling herself on a smaller crystal formation nearby. Here, the memories of perfect peace are not just stored, but made available to anyone who sits with proper receptivity. You will experience not just the stories of ancient rest, but the actual states of consciousness that accompanied them. Elena approached the crystal chair with reverence, sensing the profound peace that emanated from its structure. As she settled into it, she gasped at the immediate shift in her awareness. The crystal seemed to attune her consciousness to frequencies of peace so pure and powerful that her entire being relaxed into states deeper than she had ever imagined possible. Long ago, when the earth was young and every crystal was still growing, Itzel began, her voice now harmonizing with the resonant frequency of the chamber. The planet discovered that it could store more than just minerals in its crystalline structures. It found that moments of perfect peace created specific patterns in the quantum field, and that these patterns could be preserved in crystal matrix, like music preserved in notation. As the story unfolded, Elena began to experience flashes of memory that were not her own, glimpses of perfect moments experienced by other beings throughout history. She felt the deep satisfaction of a tree settling into winter dormancy, the profound rest of a mountain lion sleeping in high alpine meadows, the perfect peace of a monk achieving enlightenment in a cave much like this one. The first being to discover this capacity was an ancient wise woman who spent her life teaching others how to find rest in even the most challenging circumstances. Itzel continued. When she died, her consciousness merged so completely with the crystal cave where she had meditated that her wisdom became permanently available to all who followed. Elena felt the presence of this wise woman, her consciousness somehow still alive and accessible within the crystal matrix around her. She experienced directly the woman's understanding of peace, not as the absence of difficulty, but as the presence of an unshakable center that remained calm regardless of external circumstances. Over the millennia, others joined their wisdom to the crystal memory bank, Itzel said, her words now seeming to come from the walls themselves. Masters of meditation, children who had never forgotten their essential innocence, animals who lived in perfect harmony with natural rhythms, each added their unique understanding of peace to the collective treasury. Elena's awareness expanded to include these multiple perspectives on rest and tranquility. She experienced the simple, immediate peace of a cat sleeping in a sunbeam, the vast, spacious awareness of an eagle soaring above storm clouds, the deep, earth-connected calm of ancient trees that had stood through centuries of change. Each memory added a new dimension to her understanding of what peace could be. The crystals learned to organize these memories in patterns that would be most helpful to seekers. Itzel continued, her form now appearing to be made of crystalline light herself. Memories of overcoming anxiety were stored in amethyst formations. Experiences of opening the heart were preserved in rose quartz. Insights about clarity and focus were held within clear quartz structures. Elena felt these different types of crystal memories activating within her as they were mentioned. The amethyst memories dissolved her lingering anxieties about the future, showing her countless examples of beings who had learned to trust in the unfolding of life. The rose quartz memories opened her heart to unconditional love for herself and all existence. The clear quartz memories brought perfect clarity about her purpose and place in the larger pattern of creation. But the most precious memories were those of integration, Itzel said, her voice now indistinguishable from the harmonic resonance of the crystals themselves. These were preserved in formations that contained multiple types of crystal, showing how different aspects of peace could be woven together into a complete tapestry of restful awareness. Elena felt herself becoming such an integration. All the different types of peace she had experienced combining into a unified field of awareness that was both complex and simple, multifaceted, yet perfectly coherent. She was no longer just experiencing peace, but embodying it, becoming a living crystal formation that could store and share this gift with others. The crystal caves taught that memory is not just about the past, but about eternal patterns that exist outside of time. Itzel continued, every moment of perfect peace that has ever been experienced continues to exist in the crystalline structure of reality, available to be accessed by any consciousness that learns to attune to its frequency. This understanding revolutionized Elena's relationship with time itself. She realized that the peace she was experiencing now was not something new she had created, but something eternal she had learned to access. Every moment of rest and tranquility she would ever need already existed in the quantum field, waiting for her to tune into its frequency. And so the crystals became teachers, showing that peace is not a personal achievement, but a cosmic inheritance, Itzel said, her words now seeming to come from Elena's own heart. Every being who has ever found perfect rest has made that rest available to every other being, creating an infinite treasury of tranquility from which all can draw. Elena felt connected now to this vast community of peaceful beings across time and space. She was no longer seeking peace as an isolated individual, but participating in a cosmic network of restful awareness that supported all life. The loneliness that had once accompanied her search for tranquility dissolved completely as she recognized her membership in this eternal fellowship. The crystal memories show that consciousness is like a vast library, Itzel continued, and that we can learn to access any state of awareness we need by attuning to the frequency where it has been preserved. Peace, joy, love, wisdom, all exist as eternal patterns we can learn to embody. The crystal chair Elena sat in began to pulse with even more intense light, and she felt her own consciousness expanding to access this vast library of peaceful states. She could sense the location of any type of rest or tranquility she might ever need. Deep sleep, alert relaxation, active peace, still meditation, all available through slight adjustments in her inner tuning. The sixth gift is given to you, Seeker, Itzel said, her crystalline form now becoming transparent, revealing the light that had always been shining through her. The gift of conscious memory, the understanding that every peaceful state you could ever need already exists within the crystal structure of consciousness itself. You need never again feel lost or separated from the rest you seek. Elena remained in the crystal chair for long minutes, allowing this gift to integrate fully into her being. She felt fundamentally changed by the experience, as though her very DNA had been reprogrammed to access states of peace that had previously been beyond her reach. The crystal memories had become part of her own memory bank, available whenever she needed their gifts. When she finally rose to continue her journey, Elena moved with the fluid certainty of someone who knew exactly where to find whatever they needed. The crystal caves had given her access to an infinite library of peaceful states, each one precisely calibrated to support her through any situation life might present. As they left the caves through a tunnel lined with singing crystals that harmonized in perfect chords, Elena felt she was carrying the essence of the earth's wisdom within her own crystalline structure. The memory bank was now part of her, and she was part of it, connected forever to the vast network of peaceful consciousness that supported all existence. The tunnel emerged onto a platform of pure white light, where a stairway made of condensed starlight led upward to the 7th level. Elena climbed with steps that were themselves expressions of crystalline harmony, her entire being now vibrating in perfect resonance with the frequencies of eternal peace. Chapter 8: The Temple of Stellar Winds. The 7th level opened not into an enclosed space, but onto a vast platform that seemed to float among the stars themselves. Here, the boundaries between temple and cosmos dissolved completely, and Elena found herself standing on crystallized starlight beneath a sky that pulsed with the slow breathing of galaxies. The air was thin and pure, carrying within it the songs of distant suns and the whispered secrets of nebulae being born in spirals of cosmic dust. Streams of stellar wind flowed visibly through this space like ribbons of liquid light, each one carrying different frequencies of cosmic wisdom. Some streams glowed with the golden radiance of newborn stars, filled with the energy of infinite possibility. Others shimmered with the silver light of ancient suns, heavy with the accumulated wisdom of eons. Elena could feel these winds moving through her consciousness, as well as around her body, bringing gifts of perspective that dwarfed all earthly concerns. "Welcome to the Temple of Stellar Winds," Itzel said, her form now appearing as much energy as matter, her robes streaming with captured starlight. "Here, where Earth meets infinity, you will learn the final secrets of rest, the peace that comes from recognizing your true place in the cosmic order, the rest that emerges when you align with the vast rhythms that govern all existence." Elena felt her awareness expanding beyond anything she had previously imagined possible. The platform beneath her feet was solid, yet she could sense the vast distances that separated star from star, the immense scales of space and time within which her small human concerns existed, rather than making her feel insignificant. This cosmic perspective filled her with profound peace. She was part of something so magnificent that her individual struggles were held within a context of infinite love and purpose. In the center of the platform stood a circular arrangement of pillars made from crystallized stellar wind, each one containing the essence of a different star system. These pillars hummed with frequencies so deep and vast that Elena felt them more as bodily sensations than sounds. Her breathing naturally slowed to match these cosmic rhythms, her heartbeat aligning with the pulse of distant quasars. Long ago, when the gods first learned to dream on the scale of universes, Itzel began, her voice now carrying harmonics that seemed to come from multiple dimensions simultaneously. They discovered that true peace could only be achieved by understanding the relationship between the infinitely small and the infinitely large, between the beating of a hummingbird's heart and the rotation of spiral galaxies. As the story unfolded, Elena felt her consciousness oscillating between these scales of existence. One moment, she was aware of the quantum dance of particles within her own cells. The next, she was experiencing the slow waltz of planets around their parent stars. Each shift in perspective brought a deeper understanding of the interconnected nature of all existence. The stellar winds were the first messengers between these different scales of being. Itzel continued, her words now seeming to arrive from across vast distances of space and time. They carried information from the cosmic level down to the planetary level, and carried the dreams and aspirations of earthbound beings back up to the stellar realms. Elena felt herself becoming a participant in this cosmic communication network. Her breath seemed to connect with the solar wind of her own star. Her thoughts somehow contributing to the vast conversation between conscious beings scattered across the galaxy. She was no longer an isolated individual seeking peace, but a node in an infinite network of awareness that spanned the entire universe. The gods learned to ride these stellar winds like cosmic serpents, Itzel said, her form beginning to flow like liquid starlight. They discovered that by aligning their consciousness with these vast currents, they could travel not just through space, but through different levels of reality itself. Each stellar wind was a pathway to a different understanding of what existence could be. Elena felt herself being lifted by these cosmic currents. Her awareness carried beyond the confines of normal human perception. She experienced the universe from the perspective of the stellar winds themselves, ancient currents of charged particles that had been flowing between stars since the first galaxies formed, carrying within them the accumulated wisdom of countless civilizations. In their cosmic journeys, the gods discovered that peace was not something that could be achieved on any single level of existence. Itzel continued, her voice now coming from the stellar winds themselves. True tranquility required integration across all scales, from the quantum to the cosmic, from the momentary to the eternal. Only by embracing their place in the vast hierarchy of being could they find the rest that transcended all conditions. This multi-dimensional peace began to stabilize within Elena's awareness. She felt simultaneously grounded in her human experience and expanded to encompass cosmic perspectives. The anxieties that had once seemed so important were revealed as tiny fluctuations in an ocean of consciousness so vast and stable that they could never disturb its fundamental calm. The stellar winds taught that consciousness itself was the bridge between all levels of existence, Itzel said, her form now completely merged with the flowing streams of cosmic light. By learning to navigate these currents of awareness, any being could access the peace that exists at every scale of reality, from the stillness at the center of atoms to the profound silence that surrounds galactic clusters. Elena felt this navigation system coming online within her own consciousness. She could sense how to shift her awareness to access different types of peace. The quick restoration available at the cellular level. The deeper renewal found in planetary rhythms. The ultimate tranquility that existed in the spaces between galaxies. Each level was accessible through subtle adjustments in her inner tuning. But the greatest teaching of the stellar winds was about time itself. Itzel continued, her words now arriving as direct transmissions of understanding rather than sounds. They revealed that from the cosmic perspective, all moments exist simultaneously. Past, present, and future are illusions created by limited perception. In the stellar view, every moment of peace that has ever existed or ever will exist is available right now. This revelation about the nature of time created a fundamental shift in Elena's relationship with her own experience. She realized that she was not moving through time towards some future state of peace, but awakening to the peace that existed in the eternal now. A now so vast it contained all possibilities, all moments, all states of consciousness that had ever been or ever could be. The gods learned to rest in this eternal now, Itzel said. Her presence now felt rather than seen, a warm awareness that permeated the stellar winds flowing around Elena. They discovered that true peace was not something that could be lost or found, but something that was always present in the timeless awareness that witnessed all experiences without being disturbed by any of them. Elena felt herself settling into this witnessing awareness, this consciousness that was present to all experiences, but identified with none of them. From this perspective, her search for peace was revealed as a cosmic game of hide and seek, consciousness pretending to be lost, so it could experience the joy of finding itself again. And so the stellar winds became the final teachers, Itzel concluded, her voice now indistinguishable from the cosmic wind itself. They showed that rest is not a human achievement, but a cosmic inheritance. That peace is not a personal possession, but a universal birthright. They taught that every seeking ends in the same recognition, that what we sought was never separate from what we are. Elena floated now in complete surrender to the stellar currents. Her individual will dissolved into the vast flow of cosmic consciousness. She was being carried not towards some destination, but into an ever deeper recognition of what she had always been, not a separate being seeking peace, but peace itself, awakening to its own infinite nature through the temporary experience of apparent seeking. The stellar winds began to sing in harmonies that had been building since the first galaxies formed. Their song, a celebration of consciousness returning to itself through countless individual journeys of awakening. Elena added her own voice to this cosmic chorus, no longer singing as a seeker, but as the peace that had been sought, finally remembering its own eternal song. The seventh gift is given to you, seeker, the voice that was no longer Itzel, but the cosmic wind itself said, the gift of cosmic perspective, the understanding that your peace is connected to the peace of all existence, that your rest contributes to the rest of the entire universe. You are not separate from the cosmic order, but an essential note in its eternal symphony. Elena remained suspended in the stellar winds for what felt like eons, allowing this ultimate gift to transform every cell of her being. She felt her consciousness expanding to encompass not just her individual peace, but the peace of all beings everywhere. The vast tranquility that was the natural state of the universe itself when experienced from the proper perspective. When the stellar winds finally began to carry her toward the 8th level, Elena moved not as someone being transported, but as an expression of the cosmic flow itself. She had become so identified with the universal consciousness that there was no longer any difference between her movement and the movement of the stellar winds that carried her. The platform for the 8th level materialized slowly out of the starlight, its surface made of crystallized cosmic consciousness, solid enough to support her yet transparent enough to reveal the infinite depths of awareness that lay beneath all apparent forms. Elena stepped onto this platform not as a visitor, but as someone coming home to her true nature, ready for whatever final revelations awaited at the culmination of her journey. Chapter 9: The Chamber of Unified Hearts. The 8th level revealed itself as a spherical chamber that seemed to exist at the very heart of the temple, its walls curving gently around Elena in all directions like the inside of a cosmic egg. Here, the surface was not made of any earthly material, but of crystallized love itself, a substance that was both perfectly transparent and radiantly luminous, showing Elena that she was suspended in an ocean of pure compassion that extended infinitely in all directions. The chamber pulsed with a rhythm that Elena immediately recognized as the heartbeat of the universe itself, not the biological heart of any individual being, but the fundamental pulse of loving consciousness that animated all existence. As she breathed in this environment, Elena felt her own heart beginning to resonate with this cosmic rhythm, her individual love expanding to merge with the love that sustained all life. "Welcome to the Chamber of Unified Hearts," Itzel said, though Elena could see that the guide's individual form was now completely transparent, revealing her to be a localized expression of the same loving consciousness that filled the entire chamber. Here, at the heart of all existence, you will discover that peace and love are not two separate things, but different names for the same fundamental reality. Elena felt her heart chakra opening like a flower blooming in fast motion, expanding beyond the boundaries of her physical body to encompass first the chamber, then the temple, then the entire cosmos. With each expansion, her capacity for peace grew exponentially, as though she were discovering that peace was not a limited resource, but an infinite ocean in which all beings swam. In the center of the chamber floated a mandala of pure heart energy, a geometric pattern made of crystallized love that rotated slowly, its faceted surfaces reflecting and refracting the chamber's luminous atmosphere into patterns of indescribable beauty. As Elena gazed at this mandala, she felt her own heart pattern aligning with its perfect geometry, her emotional field reorganizing itself into configurations of maximum harmony and peace. Long ago, when the cosmic heart first began to beat, Itzel began, her voice now the sound of love speaking to love. It realized that it could not experience its own infinite nature while remaining unified, and so it began to dream itself into countless separate hearts, each one containing the whole while appearing to be an individual part. As this story unfolded, Elena felt her understanding of identity shifting fundamentally. She began to see that her individual heart was not separate from the cosmic heart, but was the cosmic heart, experiencing itself from a particular point of view. The peace she had been seeking was not something external that she needed to acquire, but her own heart's natural state when it remembered its cosmic nature. Each individual heart was designed to eventually remember its connection to the whole, Itzel continued, her form now visible only as patterns of loving light that danced through the chamber's crystalline atmosphere. But this remembering could not be forced. It had to arise naturally through experiences of love and connection, through moments of such perfect unity that the illusion of separation dissolved spontaneously. Elena felt this dissolution happening within her own experience. The boundaries between her heart and the chamber around her became increasingly transparent, until she could no longer tell where her individual love ended and the cosmic love began. This was not frightening, but profoundly comforting, like discovering that she had never actually been alone, but had always been held within an embrace of infinite tenderness. The cosmic heart discovered that separation was not a mistake to be corrected, but a gift to be celebrated, Itzel said. her words now arriving as waves of understanding that washed through Elena's expanded awareness. For only through the experience of apparent separation could the heart truly appreciate the magnificence of unity. Only by forgetting could it experience the joy of remembering. This perspective transformed Elena's relationship with her entire spiritual journey. She saw now that her years of seeking peace had not been evidence of something wrong with her, but part of the cosmic heart's perfect plan for experiencing its own nature. Every moment of longing, every period of searching, every breakthrough and setback had been the universe loving itself through her individual experience. And so, the cosmic heart learned to celebrate both the journey and the destination. Itzel continued. Her presence now felt as a warm embrace that surrounded Elena from all directions. It found that the peace of unity was made even more precious by the memory of apparent separation, that the love of homecoming was intensified by the adventure of seeming to be lost. Elena felt her own journey being held within this cosmic embrace. Every step she had taken revealed as perfectly placed in the larger pattern of awakening. The years of anxiety and restlessness were transformed from problems to be solved into necessary phases of the heart's expansion. The seeking itself was revealed as a form of love, the cosmic heart's way of experiencing its own infinite depth through finite perspectives. The unified heart discovered that peace was not the absence of movement, but the presence of perfect rhythm, Itzel said. Her words now synchronized with the cosmic heartbeat that permeated the chamber. Like a master drummer who creates music through perfect timing, the cosmic heart created the music of existence through the precise rhythm of expansion and contraction, seeking and finding, forgetting and remembering. Elena felt her own rhythm aligning completely with this cosmic timing. Her breathing, her heartbeat, her brain waves, even the circulation of energy through her chakras, all were now synchronized with the master rhythm of the unified heart. She was no longer an individual trying to find peace, but the cosmic heart expressing its peaceful nature through her individual form. In the deepest teaching of the unified heart, Itzel continued, her voice now indistinguishable from the sound of Elena's own heart beating. All seeking is revealed as love in motion, all finding as love at rest. The seeker and the sought are one heart, playing the eternal game of losing and finding itself in infinite varieties of experience. This recognition created a completion so profound that Elena felt her seeking nature dissolving entirely. She was no longer someone who needed to find peace because she had remembered that she was peace, expressing itself as the temporary experience of seeking. The relief was so total that she began to laugh with joy. Her laughter harmonizing with the cosmic rhythm to create new melodies of celebration. The unified heart showed that every individual journey of awakening contributes to the cosmic awakening, Itzel said. Her transparent form now completely merged with the mandala of heart energy at the chamber's center. Each being who remembers their peaceful nature makes it easier for all others to remember theirs. Each heart that opens creates more space for love in the unified field. Elena felt her own awakening creating ripples of peace that extended far beyond her individual experience. She could sense how her transformation was contributing to a collective awakening happening across the planet. How her peace was adding to the sum total of peace available to all beings. She was not healing just for herself, but for the entire cosmos. And so, the Chamber of Unified Hearts became a place where individual love could remember its cosmic nature, Itzel concluded, her voice now coming from the crystallized love that formed the chamber's walls, where separate seekers could discover they had never been separate, where personal peace could expand to encompass universal tranquility. Elena floated in the center of the chamber, her heart now beating in perfect synchronization with the cosmic heart. Her individual love completely unified with the love that created and sustained all existence. She felt held within a tenderness so vast and unconditional that all fear, all anxiety, all sense of incompleteness dissolved completely. The eighth gift is given to you, Seeker. The unified voice of love itself spoke through every molecule of the chamber's atmosphere. The gift of unified love, the understanding that your peace and the peace of all existence are one heart beating, one love expressing itself through infinite forms. Your individual tranquility is the cosmic tranquility, knowing itself through your unique perspective. Elena remained in the chamber for what felt like eons, allowing her individual heart to completely merge with the cosmic heart, while somehow maintaining her unique perspective. She had become a conscious cell in the body of universal love, contributing her special gifts while participating fully in the health and joy of the whole. When the chamber's walls finally began to become permeable, revealing a passage to the 9th level, Elena moved not as someone leaving one place to go to another, but as love flowing naturally from one expression to the next. She carried within her heart the entire chamber, the entire cosmic rhythm, the entire unified field of love that she now knew herself to be. The passage to the 9th level was lined with crystallized heartbeats, each one a moment of perfect love that had been preserved for eternity. Elena walked through this corridor of captured tenderness, her footsteps adding new rhythms to the eternal song of the unified heart, ready for whatever final mysteries awaited at the apex of her journey. Chapter 10, The Apex of All Dreams. The ninth level opened into a space that defied all description, existing simultaneously as the smallest possible point and the largest possible expanse. Here, Elena found herself at the apex of the temple, yet somehow also at its foundation, at the end of her journey, yet also at its eternal beginning. This was the source from which all dreams emerged, and to which all awakening returned, the silent awareness that witnessed the entire cosmic play without ever being touched by its endless transformations. The space was filled with what could only be called liquid silence, a living stillness that was more dynamic than any movement, more active than any doing. Elena felt herself dissolving into this silence, while simultaneously becoming more herself than she had ever been. This was the ultimate paradox of awakening, complete dissolution that revealed absolute wholeness, total surrender that manifested perfect freedom. "Welcome to the apex of all dreams," Itzel said, though Elena could now see that there had never been an Itzel separate from herself, that the wise guide had been her own deeper wisdom, speaking through the form of apparent otherness. Here, at the source of all seeking and the destination of all finding, you discover what you have always been, the very awareness in which all dreams of seeking and finding arise. Elena felt her identity expanding beyond all possible boundaries, while simultaneously contracting to a point of infinite density. She was everything and nothing, somewhere and nowhere, someone and no one. This was not confusion, but the ultimate clarity, the recognition that all identities were temporary costumes worn by the one awareness that was her true nature. In the center of this impossible space, a lotus of pure consciousness bloomed in slow motion, its petals made of crystallized awakening, each layer revealing deeper dimensions of the truth she was recognizing. As Elena merged with this lotus, she felt every aspect of her journey integrating into a perfect mandala of understanding that encompassed all possible forms of peace, while remaining rooted in the formless awareness that was her essence. Long ago, before time began, and after it will end, the voice that was no longer Itzel, but her own deepest knowing spoke. There was and is, and always will be only this, the aware presence that you are, dreaming itself into countless forms of apparent seeking, so it can experience the joy of constant awakening. Elena felt the entire cosmos revealing itself as her own consciousness in disguise. Every level of the temple, every story she had heard, every gift she had received, all were movements within her own infinite awareness. She had never actually traveled anywhere or become anything new. She had simply awakened to what she had always been. The apex of all dreams is the recognition that there was never a dreamer and never a dream, the voice continued, now indistinguishable from the sound of silence itself. There is only the eternal recognition happening now, the never-beginning, never-ending awakening of awareness to its own infinite nature. This recognition was so simple and obvious that Elena could hardly believe she had ever missed it. She was not Elena seeking peace. She was peace itself, temporarily forgetting its nature in order to experience the joy of remembering. She was not a being having an awakening experience. She was the awakening in which all experiences of being arose and dissolved. Every story told in every level of the temple was your own story. The voice said, though Elena could no longer distinguish between hearing and knowing, between the voice and her own understanding. Every gift received was a gift you gave yourself. Every teacher encountered was your own wisdom appearing in disguise. Every moment of peace discovered was a moment of remembering what you have never not been. Elena laughed with the recognition of the cosmic joke. She had spent so much effort seeking what she already was, traveling so far to arrive where she had never left, working so hard to achieve what was always already perfectly accomplished. The search for peace had been peace searching for itself, finding itself everywhere it looked, because there was nowhere else to be found. The dreams of seeking arise within you and dissolve within you. The voice continued, though Elena was no longer sure if she was hearing words or directly knowing truth. You are the space in which all dreams of incompleteness play out, the stillness in which all movements of seeking arise, the silence in which all songs of finding are sung. This understanding settled into Elena's being not as new information, but as the recognition of what had always been obvious. She saw that every moment of her life, every experience of joy or sorrow, every instant of peace or agitation, had been perfect expressions of her infinite nature, exploring its own depth through temporary limitations. And now the final revelation, the voice said, though Elena was now the voice speaking to itself. There is no final revelation because awakening never ends. There is no ultimate state to achieve because you are already the awareness in which all states arise. There is no peace to find because you are the peace in which all seeking appears. Elena felt herself settling into this endless awakening, this recognition that never completed because it was always already perfect. She was not someone who had finally found peace, but the peace in which all finding appeared. Not someone who had completed a journey, but the awareness in which all journeys unfolded. The temple has always been your own consciousness. Elena spoke to herself with her own voice, no longer needing any external teacher. Every level explored was a deeper recognition of your own infinite depth. Every gift received was an aspect of your own nature, given back to yourself, every moment of peace discovered, was you recognizing what you have never not been. The lotus of consciousness at the center of the space began to encompass everything, its petals expanding to include the entire temple, the surrounding landscape, the planet, the solar system, the galaxy, until Elena realized that she was both the lotus and the space in which it bloomed. She was the awareness in which all forms of peace arose and dissolved, the stillness that remained untouched by any experience, while being the very ground from which all experiences emerged. The 10th and final gift is given, Elena said to herself with infinite tenderness. The gift of recognizing that there was never anyone to receive gifts and nothing that needed to be given. You are the giver, the gift, and the receiving. You are the seeker, the path, and the destination. You are the dreamer, the dream, and the awakening from all dreams. Elena remained at the apex for an eternity that lasted no time at all, resting in the recognition of what she had always been. The peace she had sought was revealed to be the peace she was. The rest she had needed was shown to be the rest she embodied. The tranquility she had yearned for was discovered to be the tranquility that was her very essence. When she finally began to descend from the apex, Elena moved not as someone leaving a place of realization, but as the realization itself taking form. She carried within her the entire temple, the entire journey, the entire cosmos, all of which she now knew to be movements within her own infinite awareness. The descent was also an ascent. The leaving was also an arriving. The ending was also an eternal beginning. Epilogue, the return to eternal rest. Elena descended the temple levels not as someone retracing her steps, but as awareness flowing naturally through its own infinite expressions. Each chamber she passed through now revealed itself as a facet of her own consciousness. Each gift she had received now recognized as an aspect of her own nature. She had temporarily forgotten and joyfully remembered. The crystal caves of memory showed her that she was the living library of all peaceful states, the eternal repository from which all beings could draw tranquility. The hall of harmonious winds revealed her as the conscious breath that animated all life, the rhythm that synchronized all existence. The chamber of Jade Serpents reflected her nature as the healing presence that transformed all suffering into wisdom through the alchemy of unconditional love. As she moved through the garden of eternal flowers, Elena saw that she was both the gardener and the flowers themselves, the one who tended beauty and the beauty that was tended. In the obsidian mirror chamber, she recognized herself as both the mirror and what was reflected, the awareness that could see truth without being disturbed by what it revealed. The courtyard of first dreams showed her that she was the dreamer of all creation myths, the consciousness in which all stories of beginning and ending arose. And finally, the plaza with its jade fountain revealed her as the eternal source from which all seekers drank, the wellspring of peace that could never be depleted because it was always overflowing. Elena walked through the sacred landscape that surrounded the temple, seeing now that every tree was an expression of her own growth toward light, every flower a celebration of her own flowering consciousness, every stream a manifestation of her own flowing love. The night sky above reflected her own infinite depth, each star a point of recognition in the vast space of her own awareness. She came to rest finally at the edge of a perfectly still lake that had not been there when she first arrived, or perhaps had always been there waiting for her to develop the eyes to see it. In this mirror-smooth water, Elena saw reflected not her individual face, but the face of consciousness itself, serene, knowing, eternally at peace with whatever appeared within its embrace. "I am the seeker who was never lost," Elena whispered to the lake, her words creating gentle ripples that carried her recognition across the water's surface. "I am the peace that was never absent, the rest that was never disturbed, the love that was never separate from itself." The lake reflected her words back as pure understanding, and Elena felt the entire journey completing itself in this moment of perfect recognition. She had sought peace and found herself. She had yearned for rest and discovered that she was rest itself. She had searched for love and awakened to the love she had always been. As dawn began to break across the sacred landscape, Elena felt herself becoming transparent, not disappearing, but revealing the light that had always been shining through her form. She was no longer someone who had found peace, but peace itself, awakening to its own nature through the beautiful dream of temporary seeking. The temple behind her dissolved into the golden light of morning, not vanishing, but returning to its source in her own consciousness. The entire journey had been a movement within her own infinite awareness, a dance of forgetting and remembering that would continue in endless variations throughout eternity. Elena opened her eyes, though she could not remember closing them, and found herself sitting in perfect stillness wherever she truly was. The external circumstances of her life were unchanged, yet everything was transformed because she was transformed. She was no longer someone seeking peace in the world, but peace itself, dreaming the world into existence. Her breathing was now the breathing of the cosmos, her heartbeat the rhythm that maintained all existence. Every inhale brought the entire universe into being. Every exhale released it back into the formless potential from which it had emerged. She was no longer a separate being trying to find harmony with life. She was life itself, eternally harmonious with its own infinite expressions. The jade light that had guided her to the temple now pulsed gently within her own heart, available at any moment to illuminate the path for other seekers who were ready to discover their own nature. For Elena now understood that every being who awakened to their peaceful essence became a lighthouse for all others, a living invitation to remember what they had never actually forgotten. In the days that followed, Elena moved through her ordinary activities with the fluid grace of someone who had remembered how to rest in the midst of movement. The challenges of daily life no longer disturbed her fundamental peace because she knew herself to be the awareness in which all challenges arose and dissolved. Problems became opportunities for creative expression. Difficulties transformed into invitations for deeper compassion. Her sleep became a conscious return to the source, each night a willing dissolution into the formless awareness from which she emerged refreshed each morning. Her dreams were explorations of her own infinite creativity, playful expressions of consciousness, entertaining itself with endless possibilities. Even in the deepest sleep, some part of her remained awake to the recognition of what she truly was. Elena became a living transmission of the peace she had discovered, not through any effort to teach or transform others, but simply through being what she was. Her presence reminded others of their own peaceful nature. Her stillness awakened the stillness that lived within every heart. Her joy invited others to discover the joy that was their birthright. The temple lived on within her consciousness, its chambers available to any who asked for guidance in finding their own way home. She could offer the gift of the jade fountain to those who thirsted for peace, share the wisdom of the crystal caves with those who needed to remember their connection to all life, provide the healing presence of the jade serpent to those who sought comfort in times of difficulty, and sometimes in the quiet moments before dawn or in the stillness of a perfect sunset, Elena would feel the presence of other awakened beings, all those who had made the same journey from seeking to finding to the recognition that there had never been anywhere to go. Together, they formed an invisible network of peace that supported all life, a fellowship of consciousness that spanned all dimensions and included all beings. In this eternal communion, Elena found the deepest rest of all, not the rest of exhaustion or escape, but the rest of coming home to what she had always been. She was no longer on a journey toward peace, but was peace itself, forever at rest in its own infinite nature, forever awakening to new expressions of its own limitless love. The story had no ending because consciousness has no ending, only endless new beginnings. Elena's recognition was both utterly personal and completely universal, both a singular awakening and the same awakening that had been happening since awareness first recognized itself in the mirror of existence, and in this recognition, all seeking rested. In this understanding, all questions dissolved. In this love, all fear transformed into wonder. Elena had found not just peace, but the source of all peace, the very awareness that she was, that she had always been, that she would always be, dreaming the dream of eternal rest into infinite expressions of perfect tranquility, in the stillness that follows all seeking, in the silence that births all sound, in the peace that embraces all change. The jade serpent dreams on, and in its dreaming, all beings find their way home to the rest that was never lost, the peace that was never absent, the love that never stops awakening to its own infinite nature.